Joel Embiid. Where does Joel Embiid rank amongst the league's big men? Is he number one, number two, or number three? We'll talk about that and more next on Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more right now. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On to get started. Thanks for making Locked On 76ers your first listen, right? Every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. What's up, John? Good for having you back, bro.
Man, we getting to be like old buddies here, man. Like we still
right?
work on newspaper together. What's happening, Keith? How are you, man?
Nah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Happy holiday to you coming up, the whole nine.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But look, bro, we got to talk about something. So it's a couple things now. So the first thing is that, Joel Embiid, where does he rank against the league bigs? I mean, right now, when people talk about the best players, they talk about Giannis Antetokounmpo, they talk about Nikola Jokic, and they talk about Joel Embiid. We all know Joel's the MVP. But there's a couple of reports out there where people are frowning on Joel after the playoff shortcomings, right? So then we'll talk about that. In the second segment, we'll talk about you're a little skeptical because there's been some reports out there, and and you'll talk about it where some people are saying, Joel is cool, he's in lock and key, he's really supportive of the Sixers front office and ownership group, in light of this whole James Harden situation. And then thirdly, we got to talk about Georges Niang. I saw Georges Niang doing I think it was a Facebook Live or a Twitter Live or whatever, with Instagram Live with Tyrese Maxey. And you made me think, like, are the Sixers going to miss George this year? So those are three things I want to talk about. But first of all, let's talk about Joel and where does he rank in your eyes amongst the league's big men?
Well, I think Joel is an elite big man. There's no question about it. He's an elite player. He's the reigning MVP. He's coming off. I think I saw somewhere that this is the first time a center has led the league in scoring in back-to-back seasons since maybe Bob McAdoo did it back in the 1970s with the Buffalo Braves. Maybe.
Yeah, you're right.
Los Angeles Clippers. So there's no denying that Joel is up there. And it's if you're looking at the best big men in the world, and that's the NBA is the best league in the world that has the best big men. I mean, if you're looking at guys like, they rated Nikola Jokic number one. And after coming off of his playoff performance, I don't have any problem with that. They rated Giannis number two and they rated Joel number three. My preference among those three, I've always preferred Giannis as number one. If all things being equal, and just because he plays with that fire. And I think when he's healthy and when the Bucks can ever get healthy, I think he's the centerpiece of that team. But I think what's important where you can make the line of demarcation is between those guys is that, Jokic and Giannis elevate their games during the playoffs. They significantly elevate their games. And in all fairness to Joel almost always arrives at the playoffs with some sort of physical ailment. He's never in peak form. And he fights through it, but he never gets his team beyond the second round. And one thing I'll point out, this year he averaged 33.1 points per game, shot 54, a career best 54.8 from the floor, 10 rebounds per game, 4.2 assists per game during the regular season. But when the playoffs arrived, Joel averaged a little over 23 points per game, grabbed under 10 rebounds per game, and he only shot 43% from the field. That's down from 54.8%. And, you and I know you can't just grade somebody on numbers. That's just completely unfair. But when you're looking at the 76ers and you know that they haven't been to the promised land in 40 years, the guy who's got to get them there is the MVP, the guy who wept when they got eliminated in 2019, and the guy who wept when he won the MVP award. So, you have to bring it in the postseason. That's where these legends and these reputations are built. And until that time, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Keith.
No, go ahead. Go finish.
So until we arrive at that point, and I'm not saying I believe Joel can do it, and I do believe that Joel has been on a team that hasn't built as well with their players, and that comes from the top, as either Milwaukee or Denver. I think he's been in situations where the process produced 2 #1 picks who are no longer on the roster. And it's one thing to have those guys just to underachieve and underachieve substantially, but for them to be at a point where they're erased from the roster, you can't recover from mistakes like that. And not to tarry too far from Joel, I think he legit, he's 28, 29 years old. He can ascend to that next level, but it's got to happen now, and looking at the current state of the Sixers, I don't know that it can.
Yeah. I mean, my take on Joel Embiid is he's like kind of like a polarizing player. Mm-hmm. I mean, you either love him, you hate him, right? Mm-hmm. And it's kind of sort of, I think that it's easy for people to jump off the Joel Embiid bandwagon. I mean, because you look and you saw what he did in the playoffs, and you brought up some great stats, and you talked about how he tailed off. So it's easy for a lot of, let's face it, there were people on X now, but used formerly Twitter, who voted for Joel Embiid to be MVP, something that he won in a landslide. And after seeing Jokic dominate and seeing Joel struggle, there were certain reporters on Twitter apologizing for voting for Joel, right?
That's a bit much. It's a regular season.
Exactly. So, when you look at Joel and you look at him and you say, and a lot of people talk about it, they say how he performed in the postseason. They bring up that this is something that happens over and over again. Some people question his leadership, right? And they look at Giannis and they look at Jokic, and they say they're on a different level. The thing is, though, to me, it's easy to pick those two because you look at the Joker and you see how he's a facilitator and you see how he stepped his game in playoffs. But then you look at the Greek Freak, and you talk about, his energy. You talk about his will to win. You talk about all that. The tough thing for me with Joel Embiid, and I get everything that you said, I do. But Joel had a magical regular season this year.
He did.
A magical one. Like you said, the first guy to score, lead the NBA in back-to-back seasons.
First center.
Big man, yeah.
Since Bob
McAdoo, right? I mean, you know what I'm saying? We talking about, so then, and there's only he did stuff that hasn't been done since Moses. Now, to me, when Joel Embiid is hungry, when Joel Embiid is motivated, there is no better player, in my opinion, on the planet. Right?
I agree with you.
You know what I mean? He's the most dominant big man. He can be, dang near unstoppable. But I
And
think a
let
lot
me just
of that.
if I could just interject, Keith, and I probably know which game you're probably referring to. If you just use that game he had against Jokic in Philly when he was completely motivated, and there was nothing the Joker could do with him.
Yeah, it's not, but not just that one. Talk about the Utah one where he had like the 9 blocks, he had like 59 points, he did all this.
Right.
So to me, the question is, if Joel Embiid wants to play, and if Joel Embiid comes out motivated, fired up, then what people were saying is he's better than Giannis because Giannis can't shoot. That's what they'll say. Joel can shoot, but Giannis can't shoot. Giannis can't make foul shots, right? They'll say he's better than Jokic because Jokic isn't a scorer like he is, right? So to me, the answer to that question is easy to say right now based off of what they did in the playoffs, that those two guys are better than them. But at the same time, my man lost in the first round, right?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Talking about the Greek Freak. But so it's easy to say that. But at the same time, I think that it's hard to label him because we all know when Joel Embiid comes to play, comes to play, there's nobody in the league that's more dominant than him. The question mark is he going to be in shape? And he looks like, and is he going to be mentally ready to play and do what he got to do? And is number 3, is he going to be healthy? I think if he does all 3, they can't beat him.
But it has to happen.
Do all of them. If he doesn't do any of them, then that's a really good debate. But I don't think you can make him number 1. Now, last season, what he did was phenomenal. But the next step is he has to do it in the postseason. But when I typically rank guys, I tend to rank them off of what they did in the regular season. For whatever reason.
And as a voter, I mean, I'm sure you vote for that. As a voter, I'm sure, if over the course of an 82-game season, and you and I had a conversation quite, often during the regular season, he was the best player in that league this year over the course of the regular season. There was no doubt about it.
He was. But he just gotta. I mean, but like he just has to be locked in and motivated. He has to do some of the things that they all do. You know what I mean? Like last year he was chasing MVP. Now he has to chase immortality. You know what I mean, or whatever. You know what I mean? He got to chase. He has to chase Hall of Fame. He got to chase all this other stuff. He has to chase a chip. That's what he has to chase. He has to chase a chip. That's what he has to chase.
Yeah, that's all that's missing from his mantelpiece is a championship. That's it.
And do all the things that comes with that, and he should be fine. But look, I want to talk to the people about FanDuel, and then afterwards, you know what? I want to talk about talk about some more Joel, talk about some other things, right? Maxey. But right about now, I want to talk about Joel. How do because you said some things when we before we got on here about the reports about Joel being in line with the group and all this and all that. So we'll talk about that when we get right back.
Okay.
Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can be on everything from spreads to player props and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, official sports partner of the NFL.
Almost that time.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be crazy. I don't even know who the Eagles play. I should know, but I don't even know who they play. I'm so caught up in like the Sixers stuff. Who they open up with?
At New England on Tom Brady Day.
On Tom Brady Day.
Tom Brady Day in Foxborough. It's going to
So
be
they think it's going to get hyped up. You know, after they take that L, Brady like, man, it wasn't like this when I played.
Yeah, but I mean, Keith, well, they replacing 2 coordinators. Jonathan Gannon wasn't that good. They won in spite of him. But they still got to figure out their linebacker situation, their safety situation, and they still need a punter. So it's not, you know how Philly is, man. We are circling that wagon, but it's the NFL's a marathon.
Yeah, but they should be able to beat the Patriots. Like they should. They should.
Yeah,
they should. I mean, Tom Brady ain't walking. He gonna walk on the field, but he ain't got no equipment on.
Yeah, exactly right.
The equipment. He's not. But look, man, just what's your thoughts on the report that you said you saw about Joel being in lock, key, and step with the front?
Yeah, it was one of those. I mean, as a reporter, you see him a little too much, particularly now in the internet, social media era. There was a report, and I think it was on Bleacher Report, and they were saying that Joel trusts Daryl Morey and Joshua Harris, and I have no reason to believe that he probably does trust them, but it used an anonymous source. And my whole thing is, if a story like that where there's no harm done, it was an anonymous source with the Sixers. So I'm like, well, is somebody saying, hey, you can write that, but you can't use my name, that Joel trusts the people who are responsible for getting this team to the next level as much as anybody, the man who's got his fingers on the purse string and the man who is designated to be the chef in the kitchen. So it just seems to me like one of these stories, like, why are you bothering to write it? It was almost, I'll be honest, Keith, it was almost like a fanboy story. It was like, there's so much turmoil in the 76ers, and I got to put something out there. I'll believe that wholeheartedly when the best reporter on that beat, which is you, when you have it when you talk to Joel, and because he's going to address that now. I mean, it's impossible, inevitable that he address it now. But it was just one of those stories like, come on, man, we know what's going on in this organization. They've had one calamitous offseason after another calamitous offseason. And I'm just not ready to I don't understand the purpose of that story. I really don't. It's the internet, and let's click on it. But I was disappointed when it came. I said, okay, an anonymous source. I would expect that to come from, hey, yeah, Josh Harris, who I caught up with after he left Washington. You know what I mean? And
yeah. The thing I'll say about that is, like, right now, sometimes we get stuff, and I think that, everybody is assuming now Joel is publicly staying quiet, right? He's not saying anything. Now, we do, he did do the cryptic thing where we talked about I can win here or anywhere else.
Right.
They addressed that. Also, we do know that he was a little disappointed when Doc Rivers, not little, but he was disappointed when Doc Rivers was fired. The Sixers have said that, right?
Right.
So I think that right now, a lot of these things come out, and the reason why they're anonymous, see, basically, in my opinion, they come out because they want the masses to calm down.
Right.
Because everybody is waiting and everybody is expecting Joel to say, I want out.
The next shoe. Everybody's waiting for the next Super Bowl. Yep.
Yeah, everybody's waiting for that. So I feel like somebody like, hey, how's Joel feeling? Oh, he's good. He really trusts everybody.
Yeah.
But again, that's what you expect them to say. Right. You don't want them to say, well, Joel is a little bit uneasy right now.
Right.
He doesn't do this and he doesn't do that. So, and then right now, even Joel, if you ask Joel, unfortunately, a lot of times there's not a lot of guys who are going to tell you what they really feel in a situation like this. What they'll say is they'll have a meeting behind closed doors and say, hey, look, y'all got to do something or I'm out.
Right.
And then when they get in front of the media, they're like, oh yeah, I had a talk with them. I have total faith in them to do what they want to do.
Right.
But what happens if they don't do it? Then what are you going to do? That's the question. So when I read what I read, to me, I look at it that way. I look at it as if somebody called and asked a question, and they said, hey, this is how he feels, yada yada, this and that, and now we're done. Right? That's how I took it.
Yeah.
You know, that's how I took it to be. So, you know what? It is what it is. That's what they're going to say. That's what they're going to do. But you being a reporter for X amount of years, how many years you've been on the beat, sometimes you look at stuff and you look at it from a critical eye, or like one of those like,
Right.
And that's the way you should be.
Yep.
I hate to say that's the way you should be.
Yeah.
Because you know how stuff is. But here's the deal. They got to get it right. Because if, they got to get it right, and you can say whatever you want, these reports, but you also remember 2 years ago, Doc Rivers' first season here, early in the year, there was reports that the Sixers did not intend to trade Ben Simmons.
Right.
Everything was good.
Right.
And the next thing you know, they was trying to trade Ben Simmons.
Yeah, that's true. That's
so
true.
You know what I mean? So like, don't like these summertime stories.
Yeah.
They good. Like, leave them alone. You know what I mean? So that's just how it is. But hey, look, when we get right back, we'll talk about George Niang, and we'll be right back, y'all. So, Mitch, we talk about George. I kind of think they might miss him a little bit. Now, I mean, I think they're going to miss his shooting.
They will.
But do you think that how do you think that they'll do without him? I mean, you said a little bit, but how do you think that's going to be a huge void for them to fill, though, or just a little bit?
Well, I mean, he's a streaky shooter, and when he's on, and when he's off, he's off. He never really gave them too much at the defensive end. But in today's league, you can look around and you see a lot of that. I think the way the team was set up last year, where Doc, he was a steady part of Doc's rotation last season. I look at George Niang, and I look at the type of players that Nick Nurse likes to run out. Nick Nurse likes the long, angular, athletic players, which are not in great supply presently on the Philadelphia 76ers roster. And saying that, I think that there might be some issues. His absence and his void can be accommodated for. It can be accounted for. He fit in well here, and you were around him every day. He seemed to be a guy that players liked, that fit in well. So I think they'll miss him, but I think he can be replaced, by a smart coaching.
Yeah, he can. He probably, but the thing is, I think like when you look at George and you looked at them in the playoffs, if we're going to be real, it's two things. There were some weaknesses that he had on the defensive end.
Yeah.
That made him become a liability on the defensive end. The one thing is they haven't gone out there and replaced him as far as a big who can stretch the floor.
Right.
The guy who can pick and pop, right? You know what I mean? And, he did that, and he helped them win games at times, right? So another thing is that a lot of people don't know, he's a great guy, like a really great guy. He was a great locker room guy. The guys on the team love him. Like, even he was at Joel's wedding, where, as we said, he was FaceTiming or on live with Tyrese Maxey.
Right.
He's one of those dudes. And I feel like, I'll be honest with you, his relationship with them isn't going to be in because he's with Cleveland.
Right.
Like when he went to Utah, it was crazy, man. Like, he was in Utah. I thought I was walking around with the mayor of Salt Lake City.
George Niang Day.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it was George Niang Day. to the point where he was getting clowns in the locker room, right? But I think that in the playoffs, they can't afford to have a guy like he would have to pick up his defense.
Yeah,
because they can't afford to have a guy that's going to be like single out and attack like where he was.
And he was that dude.
But you would like to see them go out and get a big who can shoot the way he can.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You would have liked to see that. And they haven't done that. So but at the same time is a tough one because, you know, like you said, Nick likes more of like that Paul Reed, that Tobias Harris type.
Right.
You know, George was a minivan. You know what I mean? Like he was a minivan. You know?
Yeah, Nick Nurse wants to stop the wing players. He wants to stop penetration from off the wing. But yeah, there will be a void because when he was on, bang bang yang. You know, I mean, there was some truth to that. But yeah, in the playoffs, particularly against Boston, you could see his defensive shortcomings were just too pronounced.
Yeah, no doubt. But look, I want to thank you for being on today, brother. And I want to thank all of y'all for listening to this podcast and watching us. And I want to say happy holidays to y'all. Happy holiday to y'all, and don't eat too much barbecue and don't get sunburnt or whatever you're going to do or whatever. And in my instance, I guess I'm gonna spend all my money on school shopping, but
that's a good thing.
Yeah,
the worst things to spend your money on.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. That it's cool. It's cool as long as she's happy. But and as long as I'm happy too, because I don't want her looking crazy. You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, I'll be back on Monday to begin next week's podcast. And I want to thank you again, John. You know, John's been on here. Brother has a lot of knowledge, and I appreciate him a lot. I thank y'all for listening, and you can get this podcast wherever you get your podcast at. It's free and available. You can also go to YouTube and listen and watch the YouTube channel. But when you do that, click on the Liberty Bell. You become a new subscriber, and you get notifications when the next podcast drops. So thank you, Mitch. Thank you for joining, brother.
Thanks for having me, Keith. I always appreciate it, man.
All right, anytime. Peace, folks.